Hi, we're here today to talk to you about choosing the right authoring tool for your learning strategy. My name's Jonathan Archibald. I'm the CTO at Brightwave, and this is Nick Eastham. He's the Solutions Technical Manager at Brightwave. For those of you who don't know who Brightwave are, we're e-learning digital specialists. We produce bespoke content. We have innovative learning products like Tesselo, and we also help organizations with their learning strategy. So in terms of the format of this session, I'm going to introduce a bit about the authoring tool market as it is at the moment. Then I'm going to bring Nick in, who's going to get into the detail about some of the choices and the considerations that you have to make when choosing a tool. So when I was prepping for this session, I wanted to identify what's different now than it was 3 years ago, say, in the authoring tool market. Why is it a hard choice to make today? And it's quite straightforward, really. The technical landscape has completely changed in corporate environments. Back in the day, a few years ago, authoring was fairly straightforward. You'd author your product, your course. You would produce it as Flash. It would run in a browser. Your users would use it on desktops and laptops, and everything was nice and straightforward and fairly settled. But over the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen the rise of tablets and mobiles in the workplace. Our learners are demanding more access to content on the go, and that's changing things dramatically. And it's created conditions for change in the authoring tool market. So what we've seen is we've seen the existing tools that have been around a while, such as Captivate, Articulate, Lectora, adding tablet compatibility and in some cases responsive. But we've also seen new startups come onto the market like Lucid, Gomo, Adapt and things like that, which are really shaking things up. And as consumers of authoring tools, it gives us a lot of choice. But choosing is not as simple as it could be. And it's important to point out that a lot of the authoring tools on the surface offer the same things, but the devil is really in the detail with this. One size does definitely not fit all. And there's some key things that you need to work through to decide what is the best one for you. And this is something that we've noticed. A lot of our clients are coming to us with similar problems. They're wanting to explore tablet and responsive and things like that. And they're struggling to get through the kind of the marketing that happens on the tools and choosing the right one for them. And what we're finding is if you get the wrong choice, it's quite a lot of investment to get an authoring tool in place. You've got the licenses, you've got the training, you've got the setup. You might have a company like ours setting up the templates and things like that. And then once you start producing courses, you're then kind of fixed in that because you want to be able to maintain that course moving forwards. So it's absolutely key that you get the right tool and you know what you're getting yourself into. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Nick, and Nick's going to talk you through some of the key decision points and considerations that you should be asking your suppliers, you should be thinking about when you're defining your requirements.
Yes, as John had just said there's a whole host of tools out there now. There's the established ones that I'm sure you're familiar with. Captivate, Articulate Studio, Mohive, Course Builder. They're the ones that were built from a Flash architecture. Lectora, that's been around a long time too. That's actually HTML and always has been. Storyline is actually quite a new tool really compared with the others, and is also, I put it in that list because it kind of fits that same Flash mold. And then of course there's just a whole, a big long list of new contenders. It really runs into, there's dozens and dozens, potentially hundreds. And these came onto the marketplace to provide a solution for those people that needed their e-learning to perform on tablets and smartphones, where those established tools couldn't do that at the time. And with so many tools available, of course, people always want to know which one is the best. And I read blogs all the time where a particular expert says that, this particular tool is the best, and of course then you read further down into the comments and there are lots of people who strongly disagree and they think, a different tool is the best. And of course the actual real answer is that there's no one single best tool. It's always about what's the best tool for you. So we have a lot of clients come to us and they ask us to help them in establishing which is the tool that they should use. And I thought, as John said, we would run through some of the considerations and questions we asked them, the key ones, to establish which tool fits their need. I've grouped these considerations into 3 areas: design, and that's instructional design and visual design; devices, so just simply what do you want your e-learning to run on; and usability, so who's using the tool, that is, not the e-learning, who's using the tool and where they're located. So with design, I'm sure when you start off, before you buy your tool even, you have a pretty good idea of what kind of learning you need to present to your learners. And you'll know then whether you want to, whether the kind of standard tools that allow you and supply the kind of standard screen types, presentation screens, hotspot screens, question screens, whether those tools are sufficient for you, or whether you really need a bespoke course with bespoke features and richer, extra kind of things built on, things that are specific to your need. And the kind of thing I'm talking about there, there's a list, and it's diagnostic quizzes, perhaps role filters, the kind of thing you might have at the front of your course to help you kind of establish a particular path for a particular learner through the e-learning. You might just want topic and page locking. That's something that a lot of tools can't do for you. And you might have complex scenarios with different sort of scoring in there that you can evaluate at the end. Guide features with tutorials. The list is endless if you've got the right tool that allows you to build those things. The tools that you need if you're going to build those things are the fully featured tools, the ones that have actually been around the longest. So we're kind of talking about Captivate, Storyline, Lectora maybe, and the reason that they allow you to do that, the reason they're good for this, is that they allow you to set up variables and configure actions and triggers. So they're important things to look out for in your tool if you want to be able to design your own features in there rather than rely on the features that the tool kind of comes with initially. These make your tool very powerful indeed and really kind of open up the design possibilities that you have in designing your learning. So as I said, Captivate, Storyline and Lectora have those things. I'd actually say that Storyline is probably the best in that regard. We've been very impressed with what we've been able to do with Storyline. The things that we've built with it, we really haven't been able to build with other tools that have gone before Storyline. So that's the one that we'd kind of recommend there, I think. As far as visual design goes, it's a similar kind of question, really. It's about whether you're happy with the interface, the sort of UI that your tool comes with. Every tool has some UI options, maybe themes or skins, and you could probably change the colours and maybe change a few different buttons and things. But if you really want full artistic control so that your course can look like anything you like, then you need to pick particular tools that allow you to do that. And if you think about it, the one main reason why you might need that is simply that your brand might actually insist that your e-learning follows their brand guidelines, and the tools that give you the generic templates and user interfaces might not provide that. In our experience, again, it's kind of Storyline that just allows you to do the most. It really can. You can kind of have anything as a button, essentially. So you can design anything on your screen, and you can put it anywhere. And there aren't any restrictions about particular screen types that you can't change. It really is kind of up to you. And another important consideration that we ask people is, it's quite a specialised area, I realise, but if you want systems simulation training in your e-learning courses, then it's an important consideration, of course. And a lot of people do. Companies are always updating their systems or rolling out new ones, and they need to train their staff. Again, actually, it's the established tools that allow you to do this the best. Captivate, Storyline, Lectora all have facilities for allowing you to record screen sequences and then play them back to you as show me demos or tests. Course Builder is another one that will allow you to build system simulations like that, but it doesn't actually include the facility for recording the screen sort of sequences in the first place. You'd need to do that outside of the tool and just import kind of individual screen grabs, but it works quite nicely. Captivate, I'd say, is the best in this one. It's probably not surprising, since Captivate started life as a screen recording tool and only later morphed into the authoring tool that it is now. And why it's the best is it really makes it very easy to record your sequences, but it also makes it very easy to edit them afterwards. You really can, it's very easy to change particular details on particular screens in your sequences very, very easily. Storyline, on the other hand, it records your screen sequences actually as a video. So if you wanted to change something after you've done your recording, it's actually pretty difficult without specialist software. And even then, actually, it's kind of difficult to get your amended video back into your course. Devices, it's really one question, I suppose, but it's three possible answers, and that's, what do you want your users to be using to access the e-learning? Is it the traditional desktops, is it tablets, is it smartphones, or is it all three? And we found that that the best tools are really, hang on, I suppose, okay, what I'm going to say, what I'm saying is that often tablets and smartphones kind of get bundled together under the same banner, and that's mobile. But there's an important distinction between the two. And you might see that a lot of tools out there, especially the established ones, will say, yes, we support mobile. What they've actually done there is they've added a facility to the tool to output the same kind of course that you had there before that was previously being published as Flash, but now it's being published as HTML5. Now that's fine, that will work, that course will operate and function on your desktop, and it will function on your tablet, and it will work on your phone, of course, as well, because your phone has a browser the same as your tablet does. But all it's doing is it's not changing the way the course is and the content is laid out. It's simply shrinking it down. It's going to shrink down onto your phone, and we'd say that that's not really usable. A course that's tiny on your phone, you might be able to just about read the text, but I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be able to press the buttons on there. They're minute. If you want, actually, another thing to say about these courses that have kind of retrofitted this extra HTML5 facility is that in our experience, that HTML output can actually behave quite clunkily, we've found, on tablets. And perhaps it doesn't always respond to your kind of touch on the screen as reliably as you might like. So something we do, and we've done, and we do it with clients when they come to us, and it's something you could actually do yourself, is to try that out. You can always download trial copies of most of these softwares. So do that. Build a few screens, 2, 3, 4 screens. Put some buttons on there to navigate between the screens or to reveal text and images. If you publish that for HTML5 and you publish that for SCORM, you can then upload that to SCORM Cloud. I don't know if that's something you're aware of, but it's an online LMS. It's free to upload and test your SCORM packages. So it's just a very quick and easy way of getting your content onto the internet so that you can then access it from your tablet. Do that with 2 or 3 tools and just see what you think of the way it kind of behaves. Because yes, they say they work for mobile, they work for tablets, but how good are they? And we'd say, of course, that if you really want your e-learning working on a smartphone, if your strategy suggests that that's what you need, then you're going to need a responsive authoring tool, a tool that can generate responsive content. Of the established tools, it's only Captivate 8 that will allow you to do that. Adapt, Lucid, Gomo, they're just 3 of many of the new ones. And these newer tools they've been built from the ground up to kind of be optimized for responsive presentation of your content. So we think they actually work better than the kind of established tools. And I wanted to talk a little bit about 2 of those in particular, Adapt and Elucidat, because their approach to how they present the content to you is different, and they're kind of typical of the 2 different ways you can do it. Adapt, this is it's an authoring framework. It's open source, so it's free. It doesn't yet have an authoring front end on it, but they're very, very close to having that. So, it's a great tool, and I think it's one worth considering. Adapt has kind of broken with that tradition of presenting your e-learning as individual pages that you then, you click next to load the next one and then the next one. They instead have kind of presented, they designed their authoring tool so that it presents to you your e-learning, say for your topic or for your subject area, on a single page, and it's a scrolling page, so it's more of a kind of web approach. You can still kind of organise your content into what might have been pages before. Now they're kind of subsections of your scrolling single page. They refer to them as articles and blocks, and then within that you load in components, which are the things that can be simply just a text item or an image, but it also could be a feature like a carousel kind of object. And those things are organised on your screen in a sort of that grid format that you're probably aware from just responsive websites and blogs and things always do that. So it's a tried and tested method, and you know that the content will collapse and kind of flow and work fine display on your phone. I suppose this is though where you need to decide whether your strategy kind of suits this. Is it kind of do your learners, will it kind of aid their learning to be able to scroll up and down, perhaps to be able to browse the content before they really kind of engage in which part they actually want to read and sort of interact with, or whether you prefer the kind of people might say it's a more structured approach, I suppose, to have your learning in that kind of paginated way. Incidentally, Adapt can also do the kind of paginated approach if that's what you prefer. And Lucid is another tool that we like. It does stick with the sort of paginated approach. It's an online hosted tool. It's very easy to get up and running with. It has the kind of usual suite of templated screens, the kind of things that you're probably familiar with. And most of those screens do follow, again, that kind of grid pattern of kind of laying out your screen elements. But then it also allows you on a few different screen types to be able to sort of take full control, which is actually an important feature and not something I'm aware of in too many other tools. So you really can kind of just on these particular screens click and drag the items that are there, the text items, the image items, and with say text box for instance, you can move it, you can resize it, change the width, change the height, and you then kind of save that position that you've kind of determined, and you can determine positions for 4 different screen sizes. And you just click the save button for each one, and it will remember that, so that when you play it back, the text box is where you've put it rather than where your kind of grid flowing kind of pattern has kind of decided it's going to be. And it also means, of course, that you can overlay content. So there we've got a text box on top of an image, rather than with the grid format you've probably got your text next to your image, and one will flow underneath the other as you change to your smartphone. So this is very powerful, we think, to kind of break away and just kind of make your course feel a little bit more, I suppose, bespoke in a way. It also helps with situations like this where you can imagine if perhaps with an automated approach you'd collapse that screen to a phone and that text box would obscure the girl's head. With this you just move it to where you want it to be and save it. So that's an interesting tool, one worth considering. With responsive courses like this, there are new rules. There are different things you need to consider. It is a different approach. We've had kind of clients saying to us things like, yes, they want responsive, because I suppose it's an easy question to answer, isn't it? If you say, do you want it to work on smartphones, why wouldn't they say yes? So they say yes, and then later on down the design process, when we've kind of explained to them that perhaps particular types of interaction or just the sort of method of presenting things on screen that they particularly like about, and they could achieve on iPad screens and the larger, desktops or laptops, those kind of things, there's certain ones that just aren't appropriate for smartphones. And so, of course, since it's one course that's going to be working across all those 3 devices, it means you really need to drop that particular interaction or whatever it was from your course. On telling them that, they've kind of then backtracked and said, well, actually, we don't think there are going to be that many phone users. Most people will be using it on the laptop, so let's not worry about the phone people. We want to keep this interaction in. But of course, that just doesn't make sense, really, does it? I think you'd probably agree that If you're building a course and you want people to use it on a phone, every screen's got to work on that phone. You can't have 95% of the screens that are, that work on that phone. So it's an important consideration. The third area was usability, and the two things here are who's using your tool and kind of how skilled they are. So that's the authors that are creating your e-learning, and where are they located. As far as how technically adept they are, there's a whole range of tools, and they kind of, the one end there's tools that need no sort of technical level of skill to be able to use them and to be able to create an entire course with them. And then of course there's the tools at the other end where you might need quite a bit. The best tools, of course, are always the ones that require no technical knowledge, but if you do have it, allow you to perhaps build the bespoke features that I talked about earlier. So if you're that kind of user, and I suppose if you're selecting a new tool, your users probably don't have that much knowledge about it. They can start off with very little, but if they want to learn and kind of grow with the tool, online support is a very important factor, I think, for choosing your tool. And it is the tools that have been around the longest, Adapt and Lectora perhaps, that have these kind of communities online, and Captivate has a lot of tutorials, and there's YouTube channels and things to support your user base there. We'd actually say Storyline is probably the best from our experience in the kind of what it offers online as support. Primarily because the actual sort of users just seem to be so much more enthusiastic about using the tool, and really kind of seem to be falling over themselves to upload examples and things they've built and solutions to particular problems that they're having, or perhaps people in the community having. And they'll upload these samples, and you can just simply download them, and you can open them up and add them straight into your particular course that you're building. So it's very very useful, that, and it's a very quick way to learn. So have a look at which tools have the best communities. They might help your choice. And then of course you've got a question nowadays. It's unlikely that all of your authors will be sitting in the same room as you are. There could be freelancers working from home, maybe in shared office space somewhere, or they really could be anywhere on the globe. And you haven't got that problem now of having to install particular piece of software onto everybody's computers, everyone that's going to be using it. Of course, all they need is a browser and an internet connection, and they can get up and running. It means that anybody kind of wherever they are can see the same course that the other builders are using, so you can collaborate more easily. It kind of means that if you're perhaps the person that's reviewing the content that these guys are building, you can review it whenever you like, and you're always going to see the latest version. A lot of these online hosted tools that offer this also come with kind of project management features, features to allow kind of testing and to sort of plan in that kind of thing, and review features. So that might be something that is really useful to you. It's not actually. Most of the new tools are kind of hosted tools that are online, but there are some, for instance, Mohive and Lectora Online that also offer this kind of thing. So it's not. Don't just think it's the new tools that can give you that. So hopefully it's kind of obvious there from what I've been talking about that there isn't one single best tool. The tool that's most feature rich isn't the best tool for responsive output, and the tool that's best at system simulation isn't the one that's best at sort of online collaboration. You really need to just prioritize what your requirements are, and make a shortlist, and then with that shortlist and the ability to download trial copies, you can just test these things out yourself, and kind of so that you're happy that you've made the right decision. I hope that's been useful. I'm going to hand you back over to Jonathan here, who's going to talk to you a little bit about how we see the future of authoring tools going.
Thanks, Nick. That was great. So just before I move on from this, it's worth pointing out that this is just some of the key things. There's loads more things to consider, like accessibility, translations, and loads more. And also, it's quite a divisive subject. So if you disagree with anything, or you want to discuss more about other things, we're over there on the stand after the presentation. We're happy to take any questions. So what I'm going to do now is just talk a little bit about the future of authoring, what's going to happen in maybe the next few years, and then looking way beyond that into more fantastical stuff. So at the moment, Nick's kind of painted a picture that we've got the established tools on one end that are really great. They've got loads of highly refined functionality that allow custom triggers, and you can really do bespoke stuff with it that aren't that great at doing the mobile phones and the tablet stuff. And at the other end, you've got the startups that are great at doing the mobile stuff that have been built from the ground up, but don't yet maybe have all the refined functionality. So there's a bit of a gap there. And I expect over the next few years, the established ones are going to get better at mobiles. The startups are going to get better at adding in the extra functionality. So that should be quite a healthy thing. So the situation that we're in at the moment is the gap should narrow. Looking a little bit on from that, I'm really keen on the Experience API. And there's the authoring tools at the moment, you can select a box and output to Experience API, but they're just using it as a replacement for SCORM at the moment. But what makes the Experience API really interesting is when you start hooking up, creating personal statements, and that could generate a tin can statement to say how they did on that particular one. And that's a really interesting area. We're seeing some things in America. I was on a webinar the other day when there was an authoring tool, a visual authoring tool called Zebra's Apps that was experimenting with that at the moment. So that might be coming. And then if you look further ahead, and remember at the beginning I said the key change was a change in the technology. If we look ahead, what's the key technology coming up? We're looking at VR. Oculus Rift is really heavily funded. Sony's got their own VR solution. It's going to be invading the consumer space very soon. And there's no point in really me saying what the potential is for learning with them. It's really exciting. We're actually running a session today, I think it was this morning, where people could go in and try out VR stuff that we've been experimenting with. And then very recently, a couple of weeks ago, Microsoft announced HoloLens, which again is really exciting. It's not VR, it's slightly different. It's augmented reality, where it kind of puts objects over things in front of you. So you've got a guy spray painting something, but it's another really interesting proposition for learning. So if these things take off, as I expect they will do, and we want to use them for learning, someone's going to make an authoring tool for them to make it easier for us to create them. There'll obviously be the big bespoke ones, but we want something simple that we can use to make these training materials for our users. So that's just a little glimpse into the future. And as I said, if you've got any questions, we're over there, and we'd be happy to take any. And thank you.